They back again with the life story of George Clinton. It's called the managers of the groups. And we're looking into the identity of the managers and the road managers of Parliament, Funkadelic, PARLET, and the brides of Funkenstein. And we're going to deep dive right into this, man. Remember last time I did this live show, it was like 2 days ago I had to do this live show. I pull out the extras here. And we'll look at the managers here that we're gonna go to. Let's see. See, I already did my job here. Let me find out where the managers are, man. And who are the managers are that I gotta find out who they are. And go find out where the managers are, and the road managers where they are. I gotta find them. See, I just finished watching this documentary called "Tear the Roof Off," the untold story of Parliament Funkadelic. It was of sex, the science fiction. See, little clips they show me was the likes of people that's been there. I gotta find out who the managers are. I gotta look around to the managers here. I got to find out where the managers are. See, anything goes, man. So we're going right into this one here. See, I already told you about this. The previous people that you see here, the people that you see on here. Well, we'll take you to the managers and the businessmen that was already been featured in these documentaries here. You got Ron Scribner, uh, Charlie Vaseline, Tom Vickers, who was one of the managers, Ron Dunbar, who was featured in in the P Funk, the Parliament Funkadelic One Nation Under a Groove documentary. See the guy right here, rest in peace to Ronald Dunbar. He was the one that who used to ran that That company, it was called the Holland Dozier Productions. The Holland Dozier. It was the Holland Dozier Holland Productions, and it was behind. He was an A&R director, and he was behind. You know, he was behind the whole thing with Invictus records that released the Parliament Osmium album, Hot Wax labels. And he was the director of the I think it was I think it was called an A&R thing, an A&R thing, an A&R thing. That's what it's called. Well, tragically, Ronald Dunbar had passed away in April 3rd, 2018. You know what I'm saying? Uh, the people that was featured on there, um, Cecil Holmes, who was one of the guys who was working for Casablanca Records. Orman Baladian, who was one of the the guys who owned Bridgeport Music Incorporated. Uh, so Harvey McGee, I forgot to mention it to you. He was in the documentary. He was with United Soul. I didn't get a chance to mention him. The previous last documentary, not last documentary, the previous last um, live show that I already did. I didn't mention him. But the people I mentioned here is Richard Vincent, who was an author, historian, and radio host. And you got Reginald Hudlin, who was one of the directors for the old films, like the old movies like House Party, you know what I mean, alongside his brother Warrington. They used to produce and direct the House Party movies. So Reginald Hudlin, he gotten older now you know from what he once was back in 2005 when they interviewed him. Uh, the people you see on these documentaries here. So that's what you have to see here. We're going straight into some of the managers that had to be featured on what is it called? The Tear the Roof Off the Sucker, or Tear the Roof Off. I got to find it. That documentary had to be mentioned on also Wikipedia. They probably had to add it there. No, I'm not going to YouTube, dang. I gotta find the Wikipedia thing. When they had the Untold Story documentary from 2015. Where the hell is it, man? Let me see if I can go find the Wikipedia thing. I gotta find out do they have one. I gotta find out who they have one here. Where is it? I should have found something here. Sheesh, I need to find that. You already seen my you already seen my video being put under the other videos they have regarding George Clinton, you know what I mean, things like that. I gotta find out where it was here. Hold on. Gotta find out who these guys were. Let me get the let me add it up. See all the self footages that we have here. And go find out who was featured on there. Well, Cheryl James is already featured in the the Tear the Roof Off documentary. Ron Mittleman, I forgot Robert Mittleman, who was he was featured in this in the documentary. I forgot to mention him. Robert Mittleman. He's he's in the he's in the documentary. You know what I'm saying? And I remember I remember Robert Mittleman coming to a trailer that George Clinton had stayed in. It's like George have already asked George have asked Robert right after Robert had locked the door in George's trailer, and George said to Robert, "Who let Nene Montez in here, or who brought him in?" And then Robert Mittleman, who was like a manager of Parliament Funkadelic, had recalled answering George and say, "Hey, George, you did." George responded to Robert. He's like, "I did, didn't I?" See, Nene Montez was like George's cocaine guy. You know what I mean? Anybody remember that part? It was on the untold story of Parliament Funkadelic, Tear the Roof Off. You know, you got to thank the guy who directed the documentary, Bobby J. Brown. He's one that directed that film. Ronald Frank. I mean, you gotta start thanking him for producing the film. So the other two managers that I think it was I think it was the other two managers. I think it was Cheryl James. It was Cheryl James. I think it was Cheryl James and Robert Mittleman. I think they were featured on the final Parliament Funkadelic documentary. It's called Tear the Roof Off. So so you have people that's all these on these documentaries here. Or did I even know that? We'll find out what it was here. That's what the features of people that was in these documentaries that I did not find out. That's the way they mention it. See, another guy who was featured in the Ted the Roof Off documentary is David Lee Spradley, who was a tech who was a composer and producer who did play this drum machine. It's called Man in the Box that was used for Atomic Dog. So in 1982 he did that. Now we gotta go discuss these type of things. You know, I mean, already put out names of people like Ronald Dunbar, rest in peace. Ron Dunbar, rest in peace. Um, who else was on there? Cecil Holmes, Tom Vickers, and I think who was already on who was who was already on there. You know what I'm saying? And well, there's a guy who was called Ronald D. Decker. Ronald D. Decker. He was in the documentary alongside Armin Baladian, Cecil Holmes. You know what I'm saying? You know, Tom Vickers, Ron Scribner, and Charlie Vaseline. So they're they're just business guys, managers. Uh, you see Robert Mittelman and Cheryl James and Robert Mittelman are on the other P Funk documentary. So they got featured in it. So we're gonna explain what's really going on here. What I ain't gonna tell you about. I'm really sorry I did not even mention about these the people that did the women, those women that did the albums. Let me go find out. Let me go look for. Let me see if I can go find the spin-off uh group because I didn't get a chance to add that. That shows you everything else. But there's another documentary that's all based on them, based on Parliament Funkadelic. It's all based on Parliament Funkadelic here. So you have people that do the managing. I gotta find out who. I'm ready to get off this anyway. Yep, let's go. All right, let's go to this American funk girl group. And it's composed of singers Dawn Silva, and Lynn Mabry. I'm gonna get you to the images here. You gotta find the pictures they have of them. There's a picture that was already been taken here from back in the old days. This here is Lynn Mabry, and Dawn Silva. You know, what I mean, they, I think they posed for the album that they did for Atlantic Records back in the days. I think it was in the 1970s. You'll see a bunch of covers here. So you got covers of them. Yeah, covers of them laying there. I don't know why. It's a weird thing to do, but it's pictures of them from all those years ago. See, it was all etched up to the Supremes, I think. So I don't know why. The other pictures they have is there's a photo. There's a photo of them. There's a photo of them. Where they're at the autograph signing. There's Lynn, who was that's Lynn who was wearing the strings around her neck, and there's Dawn. There's Dawn who had wore the chains. I mean, they look so young when George had introduced them. It looks just. He asking me, it looks just like Lynn Mabry. Yes, it is Lynn Mabry. It's her. You gonna ask me who looks like? That's Dawn Silva. She was young at the time, and then she gotten older now. She older than she used to be in the 70s. Back when George had brought them in, and why he started introducing women. So the other photos they have is the photo they have is of them. That's a photo of them where they're performing in the 70s on stage. So the idea is that nobody else can find. Now we gotta go get to the nooks and crannies of all this. Now we're gonna go through the work that that uh that Silva and Mabry have done. So we gotta go through we gotta start decimating through some albums here. You see the album here is called it's called Funk or Walk. This was from 1978. They had like 7 songs here. The song Disco to Go is written by George Clinton and William Collins. Worship to Shanti is written by George Clinton, George Worrell Jr., and Archie Ivy. Nappy, it was written by George Clinton, George Worrell Jr., Jim Vitti, and Gary Scheider. Birdie, it was produced by George Clinton, and it was not produced by them. It was written by George Clinton and Rodney Curtis. So, just like you is It's written by George Clinton and one half of the Brides, Lynn Mabry, and one half of Funkadelic, Gary Scheider. When You're Gone, it was written by Gary Cooper and the guy who's now deceased, who was a director for it's an A&R thing, Ron Dunbar. And Amorous. See, When You're Gone, it's like it's released as a B-side to the song Disco to Go that Clinton and Collins have already had wrote. But the song Amorous, the main three people have already wrote this. That was released. It was released as the B-side of Worship to Shanti. It was song number two, and it was written by Gary Scheider, Ron Dunbar, and Rodney Curtis. Okay, I forgot to tell you all about these people here. See, people already did their job here, so we're not trying to throw it off on people here. The next album here, the second album that they have done here. What's with the doors? Stop the door! Stop the door knocking! See the next album. See the first album that came from 1978. It came from 1978. It was released. But 1979, they got another album that came out. Huh. Guy had covering all their asses. It's a See, this album here is called Never Buy Texas from a Cowboy. That's album number two here. So see, the one thing goes is it was consisted of Silva, Dawn Silva, who had to be Sheila Horn, who had to be changed her name to Sheila Horn, who had to be Sheila Brody. Um, who else was there? Well, Lynn Mabry probably left, so they already called Sheila Brody to replace Lynn Mabry. So they called another vocalist, Jeanette McGruder. Jeanette McGruder, yes, the lady whose name here, who got featured in the Parliament Funkadelic documentary, Jeanette McGruder. I forgot the word. I messed up her last name a couple of times because I didn't know who her last name is. Her name is Jeanette McGruder, who had to be a singer and a comedian and sketch actress and writer, who has performed with P Funk for years, and with the Brides and Lynn and Dawn. But this is after Lynn had left. They called Sheila. After Lynn had left, they called Jeanette and Sheila to go do the song with them. Yeah, they called Sheila and Jeanette to do the song with her to replace Lynn. But we got something going on here. We had six songs here that's already been up to date from 1979. See the song here that was already been released as a single. Uh, Never Buy Texas from a Cowboy. George Clinton and Ron Dunbar had written it. They have written the song, and The other song here is called "I'm Holding You Responsible." Uh, See, "Never Buy Texas from a Cowboy." George Clinton and Ron Dunbar, who was previously featured on the 2005 One Nation Under a Groove documentary that was from PBS, who have now died, who are now deceased. Uh, they have written the song for Dawn and Jeanette and Sheila. The other song here, "I'm Holding You Responsible," that was for them. George Clinton and the now deceased Eddie Hazel had wrote it. They wrote this for them. Smoke Signals, George Clinton and William Collins have wrote this song for them. Mother May I, Gary Scheider, Tracy Lewis, and Jim Vitti have wrote that song for them. Party Up in Here. Guess who had written the song for them? George Clinton and Rodney Curtis. Didn't mean to fall in love. That's word. Another song here, this last one here is called "Didn't Mean to Fall in Love." The writing came from Pete Bishop and the late Ron Dunbar, who was running the yeah, who was running the that company who he's been a director of uh in A&R thing in A&R thing yeah A&R thing yeah. So that's what I'm going to get to here. I'm going to get my bearings back in. You know what I'm saying? Ridiculous. I mean, how you go see how this goes on with these women? So I gotta get to that. I gotta get to it now. Uh, that's where we're gonna go right here. Let's get back to these. Okay, let's get back to the documentary here. See, the documentary. You have people that's featured on the documentary. Um, the people that's been featured, people that have been on there. Dennis Chambers. Okay, people like Dennis Chambers, uh, Cordell Masoon. Yeah, many people that's on there. We have all people that's on there. Uh, Dennis Chambers, Clarence Haskins, Grady Thomas. Uh, who else was on there? William Nelson Jr., Gary Scheider. Who else was on? Who else was on there? Jeffrey Bunn, Rodney Curtis, uh, Jerome Braley, Dwayne McKnight. Who else was there? Who else was on there? Yeah, yeah. In my mind, I couldn't even get through to it. Oh yeah, Michael Hampton, Greg Boyer. Yeah, everybody else knows the story behind it. So you got the people that's been mixed into. I got mixed these people that's in the people that's in the documentaries of George Clinton is George Clinton himself, William Collins. Oh yeah, what else was there? George Worrell Jr., uh, Calvin Simon, Raymond Davis, Ronald Ford. Shit. Well, Robert Johnson is in it. Frankie Waddy. Frankie Waddy is in it. Uh, Maceo Parker, Rick James. Yeah. Who else was in it? The ones from the previous documentaries. Uh, Ice Cube, Shock G, Andre 3000, Macy Gray. Who else was in there? So you had to find out who was on there. Yeah. And then people that's featured on one of the unsung versions of unsung version of the George Clinton documentary. Uh, Thomas Clinton. You know what I'm saying? Well, you got the managers. Well, you got Robert Mittleman, Tom Vincent, Bob D. Decker, Choli Choli Vaseline, Ron Dunbar, Cheryl James. Yeah, Cecil Holmes. Yeah, Cecil Holmes. Who else was there? Eddie Griffin, Reginald Hudlin, Nona Hendricks, Pedro Bell, Overton Lloyd. Yeah, Eddie Griffin had did the cartoon character named Afronaut from outer space, who has served as the host and the narrator of the film. Who else? Who else is there? Dawn Silva, Debbie Wright, Malia Franklin, Linda Scheider, Shirley Hayden. Yeah. Well, Dawn Silva was already in two or three documentaries already. So Jeanette McGruder, who was in Brides of Funkenstein with Lynn Mabry, Sheila Brody, and yeah, and Lynn Mabry. So and especially Paulette, who had to be Jeanette Washington Perkins. She was in the documentary as far as I know of. It's the people that's been featured on these documentaries. Well, Maceo Parker is already in it. Uh, uh, the guy who was behind the horny horns, Frederick Wesley. He's on him. He's on that documentary. So we're gonna move on to let me go move on to a spin-off American funk girl group. This right here, see, this here a spin-off group, folks. Yes, right here. Oh yeah, another American female funk group that George Clinton had conceived is Paulette. It was made of these three people, of these three women that are featured on there. Shirley Hayden, who was a vocalist, Jeanette Washington, Janice Evans, Debbie Wright, the woman who used to be on stage with George Clinton and them, and the one person and the one woman who have later passed away of a stroke, Rosalind Malia Franklin. She was in Paulette, but tragically, she had passed away on February the 5th, 2010. couple of months before Gary Scheider died. A few months before Gary Scheider died, another woman who was already in the group, Deborah Colleen Wright. Deborah Colleen Wright. See, around that time, everybody remember her when she was brokenhearted by at least George Clinton. I remember how he started flaunting other women in front of her, and she couldn't, even though Debbie couldn't even take it with George flaunting them in front of her, and it already causes her to have a nervous breakdown. We'll go take you straight to take you straight to the fall of 2017, where when she died from a brain aneurysm. She was 66 years old. So she died right after Rosalind Franklin. See, Shirley Hayden was in the group. I didn't even know she was in it. She was still alive, by the way. Yep. This woman that I never get a chance to mention this to you, Janice Evans. Janice Evans, that was already in the group. I did not know she was in the group. One thing is for Jeanette Washington. You see, she was a soul singer that she did some good. She did some vocal work, all the singing that she did, man. We're gonna take you to some work here. The very first album that Paulette have released is the album Pleasure Principle. The song, the song that was named after the album. The three people who have released it is George Clinton, Ronald Ford, who was one of the members of the band, and George Worrell Jr. They produced the song Pleasure Principle, just like the album. He produced he I think he written the album. He written the song for Paulette alongside the late William Nelson Jr. and Ronald Dunbar from who was directing an A&R thing. That's Love Amnesia. See, Cookie Jar, the song that Paulette had came out with, Clarence Haskins had produced it on his own. George Clinton, Ronald Ford, and George Worrell Jr. They written the song "Misunderstanding" for Paulette. Are You Dreaming? He produced the song with Linda Brown and Gary Scheider. Uh, Ron Dunbar, him and Gary Cooper, they call him Mudbone. They produced the song called Mr. Melody Man. That was for Parlet's album, from the album Pleasure Principle from Parlet. See, we got another album here another album here that they have done in 1979. They did that album in 1978, Pleasure Principle. Let's move on to The Invasion of the Booty Snatchers. Let's move on to this album here. It's called The Invasion of the Booty Snatchers. The Invasion of the Booty Snatchers. You see that? See the artwork right here? See that's how a woman's ass gets grabbed on by some amphibian. And you have this outer space type, that's outer space like science fiction type of thing. You got a woman trying to float on throughout her space, and then an amphibian grab her ass. Then you got another woman screaming out her ass anyway, screaming out her fucking mind. Got another amphibian trying to calm the other woman down. That's what the picture was already been taken. It's the artwork. So the two albums, see the two or three albums here. I think the first one here, I think Casablanca Records have already released it. Um, see, Invasion of the Booty Snatchers, which that happened there. See, Casablanca Records have already released it. So the six songs that they have from the second album, the invasion of the booty snatchers. Paulette's the album that came from Paulette, Riding High. It was a 7-inch single that was released. Uh, it was the writing came from Ronald Dunbar, and Ronald Dunbar, who was the director of an A&R thing, who's no longer with us. He passed away in 1998. Ron Dunbar died in 2018. Donnie Sterling, who was doing the writing with Dunbar, was featured on the earlier P Funk documentary. No rump to bump. Ron Dunbar did the writing with Donnie Sterling, Jim Betty, and the guy who had been producing it with Dunbar, George Clinton. The other song here is called "Don't Ever Stop Loving Me, Needing Me." The writing came from Glenn Goins, who had passed away in 1978, Ron Dunbar, who had died in 2018, and the one person who was left producing the album is George Clinton. But George Clinton, man, he produced Booty Snatchers with I think it was with Ron Dunbar and Filipina Bishop. I never heard of this woman. She probably related to Barbarella Bishop, who had to be George Clinton's daughter, who was featured in the VH1 Legends documentary based on George Clinton, who was the guy who produced all the work. It was like the other song here. See, the one song there that's called Booty Snatchers. It's called Booty Snatchers. The other song here was called You're Leaving. Gary Mudbone Cooper, George Clinton, and Ron Dunbar had produced it. Uh, Huff and Puff means I'll huff and puff and blow your motherfucking house down. The writing came from Ron Dunbar and Michael Hampton. They call him Kid Funkadelic. See, it's all six of those songs that came from the second album. We're going into the third album here. We're moving on to the third album here. Uh, this the last. This the only one that came out there. That was the last one. But it got a best of album coming out that I don't even know. It has this song here. It's called it's the album here. It's called Play Me. It's called Play Me or Trade Me. This is after the invasion of the Booty Snatchers. That's after the invasion of the Booty Snatchers, the album, the second album. The third album, Play Me or Trade Me, has 6 or 7 songs in them. Um, See, this is from George and Ron again. Uh, Ron Dunbar and Tyrone Lampkin had wrote the song "Help for My Friends." That was for Paulette. Uh, he wrote "Watch Me Do My Thing" with Bootsy Collins. Uh, Jimmy Ali alongside George Clinton and Robert Johnson. They call him Peanut. Uh, they wrote the song called "Wolf Tickets" that was for Paulette. Uh, it was released as a single. Uh, and the song that was named right after the album uh, that George Clinton had wrote for Paulette alongside Ronald Dunbar and Ronald Ford, who was a band member. It was called "Play Me or Trade Me." He wrote he Clinton wrote the Clinton wrote the song "I'm Mo Be Hitting It" with he wrote it with Gary Scheider and Ron Dunbar. No, they're both now deceased. Uh, and Ron did some of the work for those other 2 songs. Uh, he wrote the song that was for Paulette alongside Paulette member Jeanette Washington and another guy who did the writing who goes by the name of Stephen Pannell. Uh, then the last song he had to did the writing is with Boogie, with Mr. Boogie himself, Cordell Masoon. Cordell Masoon, who had died in 2013. He was like a bassist for the group. So that's the work that they did. I already went through the fucking track stuff. I already went through the album searches on the Brides of Funkenstein. Now I had to finish this up with Paulette, who was another spin-off group. It was a spin-off group that was like a girl group. There's 2 girl groups they did in the 70s. That's conceived by Clinton. Then we had the best of Paulette that I couldn't even find it though. I'm trying to find this shit. Nah, they don't even have it. Look, oh, the best of Paulette. Why they don't even have the best of album here? Okay, the best of Paulette I couldn't even find that. I couldn't even find it because that page there doesn't even exist at the moment. It's just about three of them, just three albums. But the best of Paulette featuring Parliament, it doesn't even show. It doesn't even exist. The page does not even exist anymore. Look, it doesn't even look at this page. It does not even exist anymore. So, but this was out before. Um, it's right. It came out before Casablanca Records. It's right before Casablanca Records had fell into some sort of bankruptcy. They're 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 like hemorrhaging. They're like hemorrhaging money, for as I know of. Not did I even know that stuff. Not did I even know that William Collins and Phelps, William and Phelps Collins. I did not know these guys were brothers. I did not even know these guys were brothers. Bootsy and Catfish. I already mentioned this to y'all already. Look, I already mentioned the names. I already mentioned the names of these people already. Bootsy Collins, Michael Hampton, Gary Scheider, Fred Wesley, Maceo Parker, Greg Boyer, George Clinton, Ron Ford. I get a chance to mention this guy periodically. Ronald Edwards. They call him Stozo. Uh, David Lee Spradley, Cordell Masoon. I already have mentioned him already. It's among all the people that's already been featured in the previous documentaries of Parliament Funkadelic. Cheryl James, I have already mentioned her already. Uh, Ronald Mittelman, I forgot not Ronald. Robert Mittelman. Uh, Robert D. Decker. Who else? Who else is there? Ron Dunbar. Who I mentioned. Who else I had mentioned? Who else I mentioned? Tom Vickers. Uh, Richard Vincent. uh, James Johnson, who's also known as Rick James. The people that I mentioned later. Who else? Cecil Holmes. I already mentioned him. You know what I'm saying? I can name names all day long, bro. All day long, I can name names. All motherfucking day long. All motherfucking day long, I can name names, bro. I'll get this out, man. Let me get out of the way. Yeah, they about to fucking play me. It's gonna take me like an hour to do this shit. I'm about to go finish this video, man, because it's done now. So I had to take too long, but I got to I got to finish this stream, dude. I'll go back to the I'll go back to the previous video that I was watching yesterday.